Welcome, listeners, to a journey into the unexpected, a tale that begins with the simple curiosity of a young boy and unfolds into a discovery that would captivate an entire community. Imagine stumbling upon something buried for decades, hidden beneath layers of time and mystery, only to realize its connection to a distant, tumultuous past. Today, we unravel the story of a quiet lake, a sunken relic, and the adventurous spirit of a child who dared to explore. Stay with me as we uncover the secrets waiting just beneath the surface. Panicked, he shouted at everyone to stop pulling, then he immediately called the authorities and reported what he thought they found. As he waited for help, he grew more and more impatient. He needed to know what lay beneath the surface, but he couldn't put everyone in danger. Why? What on earth did they find? But before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. Charles Bose was a curious 10-year-old with an adventurous spirit. His weekends were often filled with hikes through the woods alongside his parents, who encouraged his love for exploration. On a particularly sunny Saturday, Charles decided to wander off the beaten path, lured by the allure of a nearby lake he had never visited before. The sun's golden rays filtered through the dense canopy above, creating patterns of light and shadow on the forest floor. Charles, unable to contain his excitement, turned to his parents and shouted, "I'm going to see the lake," before disappearing into the bushes. His parents, accustomed to his wanderlust, smiled and continued their leisurely walk, trusting him to return soon. Charles trudged through the underbrush, stepping over fallen logs and pushing past tall grass until he emerged in a meadow. Before him lay the secluded lake, its waters dark and still, exuding an eerie tranquility. The air felt cooler here, and the surrounding silence amplified the soft rustling of leaves in the gentle breeze. "Wow," Charles whispered to himself, captivated by the pristine beauty of the hidden spot. It felt like he had stumbled upon a secret world untouched by time. As he scanned the area, something caught his eye near the water's edge. A piece of rope, half buried in the mud, trailed from the shoreline into the lake's murky depths. His curiosity piqued, Charles approached the rope and crouched down. His small hands dug into the cold, damp mud as he tried to free it. The rope felt coarse and heavy, and it didn't budge easily. He tugged with all his might, his imagination racing with possibilities of what could be at the other end, perhaps an old fishing net or a sunken treasure chest. When the rope resisted further, Charles realized he couldn't do it alone. Mud streaked on his hands and clothes. He sprinted back to his parents, his voice filled with excitement. "Come quick! I found something in the lake!" His parents, curious but slightly skeptical, followed him to the water's edge. Seeing the rope, his father grinned. "All right, let's see what you've got here," he said, grabbing hold of it. Together, they began to pull, inching more of the rope out of the muddy water. As they worked, the rope revealed a shiny object beneath the surface. Charles leaned closer, his eyes widening. "Is it a shipwreck?" he asked eagerly. His father shook his head. "No way. This lake is too isolated for that." But just as they began to speculate, a strange sound interrupted them. A distant echo of voices carried through the forest. Charles and his parents turned to see a group of men approaching from the nearby trail. One of them called out, "Do you need help with that?" Charles nodded enthusiastically, eager to have more hands on the mysterious rope. His father hesitated for a moment but agreed. It was clear they weren't going to figure this out alone. The men joined in, their combined strength making steady progress. The rope grew taut as they pulled, and the shiny object at the bottom of the lake began to rise closer to the surface. Excitement bubbled within Charles, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something about this discovery was unusual. As more of the object emerged, the water rippled with an eerie stillness. One of the men paused, staring intently at the exposed metal. Strange white markings covered its surface, almost like symbols or codes. His expression shifted from curiosity to alarm. "Stop!" the man shouted abruptly, releasing the rope. Everyone froze. "Don't pull it out any further," His voice was firm, tinged with fear. Charles's father, confused, asked, "Why? What is it?" The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he fumbled for his phone and dialed the authorities. "We found something unusual," he told them. "It could be dangerous." The group stepped back, setting the rope down carefully. The man explained, "This might be an old military relic. If it's what I think it is, we shouldn't touch it until the experts arrive." Charles felt a mix of disappointment and apprehension. He glanced at the object in the water, its markings now faintly visible above the surface. What could it be? Why was it dangerous? The wait felt endless. Charles paced along the water's edge, his mind racing with possibilities. His imagination, always vivid, conjured images of hidden treasures and sunken mysteries. But the man's reaction had dampened his excitement. Finally, the sound of sirens echoed through the forest, followed by the rumble of heavy vehicles. The authorities arrived and a team of specialists examined the rope and the object. After a brief discussion, they attached the rope to a sturdy truck equipped with a winch. Charles watched intently as the truck began to pull. The rope tightened, and the mysterious object rose further out of the water. Mud and peat clung to its sides as its full shape slowly came into view, a massive, rusted structure with an enormous hatch. One of the specialists gasped. "It's a tank," he announced. The crowd murmured in astonishment. Charles's eyes widened as he realized the enormity of what he had discovered. The tank emerged from the water, its muddy exterior glinting in the sunlight. It was enormous, its rusted metal casing still intact despite decades underwater. The hatch and the strange markings on its side only added to the mystery. Charles stood frozen, watching as the team worked to secure the massive structure. "A tank in this lake?" he whispered in awe. His father crouched beside him, just as baffled. "How did it get here?" he murmured. One of the specialists approached the group. "This is a Komatsu D375A2, a war tank," he explained. "It's been here for a long time, likely abandoned during World War II. The specialist continued, "Tanks like this were used by the Soviet Army. Judging by its condition, it's been underwater for at least 50 or 60 years. He gestured to the white markings on the side. "These symbols suggest it was captured by the German forces. It's possible they drove it into the lake to prevent it from being recaptured." Charles's mother gasped. "You mean they deliberately sank it here?" The man nodded. "It's a common tactic during wartime to destroy or hide valuable equipment so the enemy can't use it." The crowd around them grew as more people gathered to witness the remarkable discovery. Phones and cameras were raised, capturing the moment as the tank was hoisted onto the shore. Despite the excitement, the specialists were cautious. "There's a risk the ammunition inside could still be live," one of them warned. "We'll need to handle this carefully." Hearing this, Charles felt a shiver run down his spine. The danger suddenly felt real. The man who had initially warned them to stop pulling the rope was right. Their curiosity could have ended in disaster. The team inspected the tank carefully, removing any potentially dangerous components. To everyone's relief, the ammunition appeared to be either missing or too damaged to pose a threat. The atmosphere lightened as the specialists gave the all-clear. By now, news of the discovery had spread. Local reporters arrived to document the event, and Charles quickly became the center of attention. "This boy's curiosity led to an incredible find," one reporter declared. Charles beamed, thrilled that his adventurous spirit had uncovered a piece of history. The tank was later taken away for restoration and study, but the memory of that day stayed with Charles forever. He adventured into the woods, hoping for a small adventure, and instead he uncovered a story from the past that fascinated an entire community. The tank, now fully removed from its muddy resting place, was transported to a nearby historical preservation facility. Specialists carefully cleaned off layers of grime and rust, revealing more of its structure. The markings on its side became clearer, confirming its role in the war. Historians began piecing together its story. The Komatsu D375A2 was a powerful piece of machinery captured during the brutal conflicts between the Soviet and German forces. Documents found later suggested that the tank had been driven into the lake intentionally to prevent it from being used again. For Charles, hearing these details only deepened his fascination. He followed every update, eager to learn more about the history he had uncovered. Word of the discovery spread far beyond the local community. The tank became a symbol of resilience and a reminder of the region's wartime past. Once restored, it was put on display in a local museum where visitors could learn about its history and significance. Charles, accompanied by his parents, was invited to the museum's unveiling ceremony. His name was mentioned as the young adventurer whose curiosity had brought the tank to light. Standing in front of the massive relic, Charles felt a swell of pride. "I never thought something so big could be hiding in the lake," he said during a brief interview. "I just wanted to explore, and now it feels like I helped bring back a piece of history." Despite his fame, Charles remained the same adventurous and curious boy. Every weekend he continued his explorations, though his parents insisted he'd be more cautious. "You never know what you might find," his father would remind him with a grin. Charles often revisited the lake, now more popular than ever. The once quiet spot had become a place of interest for locals and tourists alike. Yet for Charles, it still held a special magic, the memory of the day he stumbled upon something extraordinary. The tank stood in the museum as a lasting reminder of its wartime journey and the day it was pulled from the lake. People marveled at its preservation and the story behind its discovery. Charles's name became synonymous with curiosity and exploration in his town. Teachers shared his story with students, encouraging them to stay curious and open to the unexpected. As for Charles, he often wondered what other mysteries lay hidden, waiting for someone like him to uncover them. The discovery of the submerged war tank was not only a remarkable find, but also a testament to the power of curiosity and exploration. For young Charles, what began as an ordinary hike turned into an extraordinary journey into history. His adventurous spirit and determination uncovered a relic that had remained hidden for decades, buried beneath layers of mud and water. The tank, now restored and displayed in a museum, became a symbol of resilience and the enduring stories of the past. Its rusted exterior told tales of wartime strategies, loss, and the lengths people would go to protect valuable resources. Charles's discovery united his community, sparking conversations about history and the importance of preserving it for future generations. Though the danger of the live ammunition was a sobering reminder of the risks involved, the event ultimately ended with celebration and awe. Charles's role in this story became an inspiration to many, especially to children who saw him as a role model for curiosity and courage. For Charles, the memory of that day would stay with him forever, not just as a proud moment, but as a reminder that sometimes the most incredible discoveries lie just beneath the surface, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them.